I forgot I was making some coffee. Well, I was reheating it, so I'm about to heat it up. I'm about to just be reading The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins. You know what I mean? I've already started reading it. Um, yeah, and I'm on page 148. So there's that. Shit, hold up. What's up, homies? Holy shit. That is fucking hot. Blunt. This is not a cigarette. The fuck? This says Vessel of Wrath. You should get you one from the Dade Murphy shop. It was just sweaty, so I didn't want to wear it anymore. All right. Hold on. What is the use of half an eye? What is the use of half a wing? Those are both instances of the argument from irreducible complexity. A functioning unit is said to be irreducibly complex if the removal of one of its parts causes the whole to cease functioning. This has been assumed to be self-evident for both eyes and wings. But as soon as we give these assumptions a moment's thought, we immediately see the fallacy. A cataract patient with the lens of her eye surgically removed can't see clear images without glasses, but can see enough to bump into a tree or fall over a cliff, or see enough not to bump into a tree or fall over a cliff. Half a wing is indeed not as good as a whole wing, but it is certainly better than no wing at all. Half a wing could save your life by easing your fall from a tree of a certain height. And 51% of a wing could save you if you fall from a slightly taller tree. Whatever fraction of a wing you have, there is a fall from which it will save your life, where a slightly smaller winglet wouldn't. The thought experiment of trees of different height from which one might fall is just one way to see, in theory, that there must be a smooth gradient of advantage all the way from 1% of a wing to 100% of a wing. The forests are replete with gliding or parachuting animals, illustrating in practice every step of the way up that particular slope of Mount Improbable. By analogy, with the trees of different height, it's easy to imagine situations in which half an eye would save the life of an animal, where 49% of an eye wouldn't. Smooth gradients are provided by variations in lighting conditions, variations in the distance at which you catch sight of your prey or your predators. And as with wings and flight surfaces, plausible intermediates are not only easy to imagine, they are abundant all around the animal kingdom. A flatworm has an eye that, by any sensible measure, is less than half a human eye. Nautilus, and perhaps its extinct ammonite cousins who dominated Paleozoic and Mesozoic seas, has an eye that is intermediate in quality between flatworm and human. Unlike the flatworm eye, which can detect light and shade but not see images, the Nautilus pinhole camera eye makes a real image, but it is a blurred and dim image compared to ours. It would be spurious precision to put numbers on the improvement, But nobody could sanely deny that these invertebrate eyes, and many others, are all better than no eye at all, and all lie on a continuous and shallow slope up Mount Improbable with our eyes near a peak. Not the highest peak, but a high one. In climbing Mount Improbable, I devoted a whole chapter, each to the eye and the wing, demonstrating how easy it is, or rather, how easy it was for them to evolve by slow, gradual degrees. And I'll leave the subject here. Where's my motherfucking lighter? Hold on. I got it. All right, let's see what everybody talking about. One of my favorites too. I hear you, brother. Press the like button on every Metallica, Slayer, Megadeth, Anthrax, Cannibal Corpse, and Slipknot shirts. Okay. Hungry Ghost. What's up, June Pai Yoshino? What the hell? What are you reading? This is The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins. You know. And if you have a copy, I am on page 150. Dade, you shouldn't be smoking, remember? This is a blunt, man. I don't smoke cigarettes. I gave up cigarettes, okay? I will never stop smoking weed, okay? Unless a doctor's like, you smoke one more blunt and you're fucking dead, then I'll probably stop. But until then, shit. Look, I gave up cigarettes, and that's difficult as fuck, okay? I'm not going to give up all of my vices, you know what I mean? Goddamn bear. That's the homie right there. No judgment zone. Have a cig, sir. Nah, man. It ain't even about that. It's just, I don't want to smoke cigarettes anymore. I just don't. Like, I've smoked them since I was fucking 16. And I'll be 45 this year. I've been smoking them shits forever. Like, over 20-something years, son. Like, I'm done. You know what I mean? Almost 30 years. Almost. That's medicine. You goddamn right. Crew Kid Soul. I guess that's how you say it. Dade! Lol. Congrats on quitting cigs. I'm struggling to do the same. I mean, I don't know, man. I just got... it was having effects on my body physically that I didn't know was attributed to the cigarette smoking. Once I realized that, I was like, oh, no, I gotta stop. I quit that day. I threw the cigarette. It's been a week. It's been actually a week and 1 day because I quit last Tuesday. You know what I mean? And it's been difficult. You know what I mean? It wasn't really cold turkey, to be honest. You know what I mean? Like, I whittled it down from like a pack every day and a half to like a pack a week. You know what I mean? If that. Like, I'm trying to cut it back severely. You know what I mean? Because it's not easy to do at all. It is extremely difficult, and I don't really have any help. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not using gums or patches or nothing like that. You know what I mean? And there's no one around me really who smokes cigarettes, like, typically, but nonetheless, it was part of my habit. It's been part of my day to day for like I said, over 20 fucking years. You know what I mean? So it's just, it's trying to break the habit, not so much of just smoking the cigarette, but mostly that, but also like relying or depending rather on a cigarette, depending on the situation. You know what I mean? Like when I wake up, it's like I just woke up, so immediately I want a cigarette. So now it's like you don't need a cigarette as soon as you wake up, or just whatever. You know what I mean? Like when I'll go on my 15-minute break at work, typically I would smoke a cigarette, but now it's like I'll just fucking read or something. You know what I mean? But anything other than smoke the cigarette. It's just trying to break the habit of like knowing that when X happens, I smoke a cigarette, but instead of, you know, I'm trying to break that dependency, you know. And I've been doing pretty good, you know. I've been doing really good, I think. So, I'm trying to look at that movie, and you're being incredibly loud. You off the train. At least you like being badass when you smoke. You know what Lil Wayne said, die young and leave a beautiful corpse. True. Lol, I'd get 3 cigs in on a 15-minute break. God damn, 3? You smoke a cigarette every 5 minutes? Shit, son. You trying to die quick. This motherfucker said, give me cancer. Okay. That is the goal. I'm just fucking with you, man. I can't really talk shit. Like I said, I've been smoking cigarettes for fucking almost 30 years, son. So, all right, man, let's get back to it. So, we've seen that eyes and wings are certainly not irreducibly complex. But what is more interesting than those particular examples is the general lesson we should draw. The fact that so many people have been dead wrong over these obvious cases should serve to warn us of other examples that are less obvious, such as the cellular and biochemical cases now being touted by those creationists who shelter under the politically expedient euphemism of intelligent design theorists. We have a cautionary tale here, and it's telling us this. Do not just declare things to be irreducibly complex. The chances are that you haven't looked carefully enough at the details or thought carefully enough about them. On the other hand, we, on the science side, must not be too dogmatically confident. Maybe there is something out there in nature that really does preclude, by its genuinely irreducibly complexity, the smooth gradient of mountain probable. The creationists are right that if genuinely irreducible complexity could be properly demonstrated, it would wreck Darwin's theory. Darwin himself said as much. If it could be demonstrated that any complex organ existed which could not possibly have been formed by numerous successive slight modifications, my theory would absolutely break down. But I can find no such case. Darwin could find no such case, and nor has anybody else since Darwin's time, despite strenuous, indeed desperate efforts. Many candidates for this holy grail of creationism have been proposed. None has stood up to analysis. In any case, even though genuinely irreducible complexity would wreck Darwin's theory if it were ever found, who's to say that it wouldn't wreck the intelligent design theory as well? Indeed, it already has wrecked the intelligent design theory, for, as I keep saying, and will say again, however little we know about God, the one thing we can be sure of is that this God would have to be very, very complex and presumably irreducibly so. So in other words, if you're going to posit a God as the explanation for things that you're considering irreducibly complex, well, then your God needs an explanation for his irreducible complexity, given that he would have to be far more complex than that which he's responsible for having brought into being. So there's that. But we already know that, you know what I mean? You can't say, well, things are just so complicated and it's just so, there's no chance that they would have just arisen like that by chance. First of all, we on the science side agree. It wouldn't just by chance, motherfucker. It happened by natural selection. Okay. And your God doing it doesn't explain shit. So, anywho. The worship of gaps. That's where we're at. Searching for particular examples of irreducible complexity is a fundamentally unscientific way to proceed. A special case of arguing from present ignorance. It appeals to the same faulty logic as the God of the Gaps strategy, condemned by the theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Creationists eagerly seek a gap in present-day knowledge or understanding. And if an apparent gap is found, it is assumed that God, by default, must fill it. What worries thoughtful theologians such as Bonhoeffer is that gaps shrink as science advances, and God is threatened with eventually having nothing to do and nowhere to hide. What worries scientists is something else. It is an essential part of the scientific enterprise to admit ignorance, even to exalt in ignorance as a challenge to future conquests. As my friend Matt Ridley has written, most scientists are bored by what they have already discovered. It is ignorance that drives them. Mystics exalt in mystery and want it to stay mysterious. Scientists exalt in mystery for a different reason. It gives them something to do. More generally, as I shall repeat in chapter 8, one of the truly bad effects of religion is that it teaches us that it is a virtue to be satisfied with not understanding. Facts. You know what I mean? Christianity, just to use an example of one particular, kind of theism, would have you believe all kinds of nonsense, but yet that which we can prove to be real, that has an ontological substantiation, that they will say, nah, man, you can't really trust that shit, son. You know what I mean? You got to trust the shit that can't nobody prove or disprove. You know what I mean? That's Christians don't make no fucking sense, son. None. Like, I need to stay on topic real quick. Dade, thanks, Ancient Technique. What's Dade reading? Skibbity Toilet Brush. I'm reading the God Delusion by Dawkins. Page 153. Okay, no, 152. I haven't gotten that far yet. Admissions of ignorance and temporary mystification are vital to good science. It is therefore unfortunate, to say the least, that the main strategy of creation propagandists is the negative one of seeking out gaps in scientific knowledge and then claiming to fill them with intelligent design by default. The following is hypothetical, but entirely typical. Okay. A creationist speaking. The elbow joint of the lesser spotted weasel frog is irreducibly complex. No part of it would do any good at all until a whole was assembled. But you can't think of a way in which the weasel elbows, but you can't think of a way in which the weasel frog's elbow could have evolved by slow, gradual degrees. If the scientist fails to give an immediate and comprehensive answer, the creationist draws a default conclusion. Right then, the alternative theory, intelligent design, wins by default. Notice the biased logic. If theory A fails in some particular, theory B must be right. That is not how that goes, but yeah. Needless to say, the argument is not applied the other way around. We are encouraged to leap to the default theory without even looking to see whether it fails in the very same particular as the theory it is alleged to replace. Intelligent design is granted a get-out-of-jail-free card, a charmed immunity to the rigorous demands made of evolution. But my present point is that the creationist ploy undermines the scientist's natural, indeed necessary, rejoicing in uncertainty. For purely political reasons, today's scientist might hesitate before saying, interesting point. I wonder how the weasel frog's ancestors did evolve their elbow joint. I'm not a specialist in weasel frogs. I'll have to go to the university library and take a look. Might make an interesting project for a graduate student. The moment a scientist said something like that, and long before the student began the project, the default conclusion would become a headline in a creationist pamphlet. Weasel frog could only have been designed by God. There is then an unfortunate hookup between science's methodological need to seek out areas of ignorance in order to target research, and intelligent design's need to seek out areas of ignorance in order to claim victory by default. It is precisely the fact that intelligent design has no evidence of its own but thrives like a weed in gaps left by scientific knowledge that sits uneasily with science's need to identify and proclaim the very same gaps as a prelude to researching them. In this respect, science finds itself in alliance with sophisticated theologians like Bonhoeffer, united against the common enemies of naive populist theology and the gap theology of intelligent design. The creationists' love affair with gaps in the fossil record symbolizes their whole gap theology. I once introduced a chapter on the so-called Cambrian explosion with the sentence, "It is as though the fossils were planted there without any evolutionary history." Again, this was a rhetorical overture intended to whet the reader's appetite for the full explanation that was to follow. Sad hindsight tells me now how predictable it was that my patient explanation would be excised and my overture itself gleefully quoted out of text. Creationists adore gaps in the fossil record, just as they adore gaps generally, except the gaps between women's legs. They don't adore those gaps. You know what I mean? What do we have here? Dade, what's going on, brother? What's going on, Mike? Atheism is anarchy. No, it isn't. If you choose to not choose a religion, you still have made a choice. You know how ridiculous that sentence is? You know what I mean? I can choose not to observe particular practices associated with one religion or another. You know what I mean? But that's just doing shit. You know what I mean? Like that's like politicians, for instance, who aren't Christians, but they will espouse Christian rhetoric because they know you are. You know what I mean? And that's all you need to be persuaded is that they said a few Jesus-y things but they had to do it in order to get their position because it's not likely that they would get elected into office if they were an outright atheist. You know what I mean? So they would, even if they were an atheist, they would just lie and say that they were a Christian so that they can get elected, you know. In fact, there's a lot of pastors out there, Christian pastors, who don't even believe the shit. But they don't have any other way of making a living. Like they've been preaching their entire lives. This is all they know. They have no other skill sets. You know what I mean? And so even though they know that the Bible is bullshit, the theology is trash, they can't give it up because that's their livelihood. You should check out the, what's it called? It's like a whole project full of like pastors and clergy people who are atheists, but who are still preaching, you know what I mean? For one reason or another. So yeah, bro, I don't know what to tell you. Said like Trump. Exactly. You know what I mean? Trump ain't no fucking Christian, even though, to be fair, like how is he not a Christian? You know what I mean? Christians don't read the Bible. Trump doesn't read the Bible. You know what I mean? Christians are hypocritical, sanctimonious, bloviating, lying, sanctimonious pieces of shit. And so is Trump. I don't see what makes him any different from a Christian. Okay? He's a piece of shit. And most Christians I know are pieces of shit. Because they're Christians. So, yeah, I don't know what to tell you, bro. Like, for me, every Christian I've ever met is a hypocrite. None of them reflect the teachings of Jesus. Not one. Okay? None of them follow the 10 Commandments. You know what I mean? Maybe it's because they've relegated them to the garbage bin. You know what I mean? Because it's part of the old, you know what I mean, Testament. Even though they espouse its importance, you know. But they don't fucking, you know, they don't do the 10 Commandments. They don't do none of that shit. And that's just 10 of them. You know, let alone the other 603 commandments, okay? So yeah, I don't see how Trump is any different from any other Christian. You put Trump in a room and just pick 5 Christians you've ever met in your life. Just pick out of a crowd and then just throw them all in one room and then be like, which one is not a Christian. You can even throw me in there and just pretend you didn't know me. Or if you didn't know me and just threw me in there, how do I look any different or speak or act any different from any other Christian? I cuss, I smoke, you know what I mean? I'm kind of into myself a little bit. I mean, let's be honest, you know. And then so are Christians, you know what I mean? I have not yet met someone who was so like unique, so like humble and good. You know what I mean? Just like a decent person, always wanted to help, always tries to help. Just exactly what you think of when Jesus was talking about what it would be like to follow him. Unfortunately, those people that I met aren't Christians. The people who exhibit Christ-like behavior don't even recognize Christ as anything important. You know what I mean? But yet all the people who are like, Jesus loves you, Jesus is king, Christ is king, Jesus, 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 those are the biggest hypocrites, the biggest lying pieces of shit. You know what I mean? Like, those motherfuckers are the goats. Okay. Everyone I know who isn't a Christian and yet tries to do their best to feed the hungry, advocate for housing the homeless and giving water to the thirsty and visiting the sick and or the imprisoned, you know, helping others who are in need, essentially loving thy neighbor. Everyone I know who does that does not call themselves a Christian. Okay, all the Christians I know are all like, well, you need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, motherfucker. There's no free handouts. You know, look, we don't have resources for everyone who's not part of this country. Okay, there's not jobs for everyone. You know, fuck out of here. Those are Christians. Okay, but people I know who aren't Christians are some of the most loving, welcoming, kind people that I've ever met. You know what I mean? But these Christians, on the other hand, even if they were some of the kindest people I met, once they tell me that they're a Christian, I'm like, oh, then you're by default not a good person. Okay, I'm sorry, you can't be a Christian and a good person unless you're just calling yourself that, but you don't really like adhere to the edicts in the Bible. You don't really go to church, but it's easier to just say you're a Christian just to avoid beef, which is crazy on its own. Like, why would there be any sort of, you know, confrontation because you're not a Christian? You know, who's confronting you about it? Because it ain't atheists. We don't give a fuck. We're like, well, good job. You know what I mean? So you must be getting harassed by other Christians. Again, not shocking at all, because I don't give Christians or Christianity the benefit of the doubt with anything good. Okay, I just don't. In fact, I'm tired of people saying things that are evil and wicked as demonic. I'm like, why are we being so mean? Like, that's unwarranted in my opinion. You know what I mean? First of all, demons aren't real. Okay, none of this shit is real. But assuming for a second that it were, why are we giving so much shit to the devil and demons? Have we not read the Bible? Okay. It is the God of said Bible that is more responsible for death and destruction, exponentially so, than the devil. You know what I mean? And anyone who's read the Bible fucking knows that. Okay. So I don't know why we keep saying when things are evil, wicked, or just wrong, bad, or whatever, that we say that those things are demonic or satanic. No, they're not. If anything, they're godly and angelic. Okay, because it was the angels who came and told what was it, Lot, that like, hey, we about to fuck these cities up, son. You know what I mean? So that wasn't demons who said that. Those are angels. You know, it wasn't the devil who's like, man, I'm about to burn all this shit, son. Everybody. And then somebody, and Lot had to be like, come on, Satan, there's got to be at least 5 people we can save. He's like, all right, bro, go ahead, see if we can find 5. Then you come back like, how about just one person? And you go, all right, shit, I bet you don't find them, though. And sure as shit, Lot didn't find nobody. Yeah, you right. You guess we'll just kill them all, son. But can I get out first? You know. And if it were truly a merciful God, he would have let all those people live. He would have done something to warm their hearts or some shit, like he did with the Pharaoh. When he hardened his heart. See, how does any of this comport with the notion that this God is good? Okay, how get the fuck out of here? If any, what is this opposite day? You know what I mean? Like, oh, good and loving is actually evil and wicked and cruel. And that which is evil, wicked, and cruel is actually good and loving. Christianity doesn't make any fucking sense at all. But what are you gonna do? All I can do is rail against it, fight against it. Because these motherfuckers are truly... Anyway, that was a tangent. I didn't mean to... I was just thinking about that. Like, that's been on my mind for weeks. I'm like, why do we keep doing that? Like, I was watching Kyle Kalinske, which is what brought it back up in my mind. And he was saying something about... I don't know who it was he was talking about, but he was saying that person was demonic and wicked, and I'm just like, and I was thinking then, like, why are you being so uncharitable to demons? Okay, it isn't the demons and the devil that's responsible for all the horrible, wicked shit. I mean, if anything, again, God conforms everything to the purpose of His will. Okay, that means everything that's happened. He said, "I create good and light and darkness." Isaiah, what was it, 54? I think. I can't really remember, but anyway, I create light and I create darkness. You know what I'm saying? He creates good and evil. Ephesians 1:11. Everything happens according to His will. So this is all what He wants. He wants all this suffering and unnecessary death and evil. He wants all this. You know what I mean? So I don't know why we keep blaming the devil. If he's the one doing it, then it's only because God told him to. He works for God. That's the only explanation for why he would exist. Okay? If God didn't want him to. If God didn't want the devil to exist, he'd do away with him. Snap his fingers. Let the devil be gone, or whatever the fuck he'd say. And he'd just be gone. So the fact that he's still around means God wants him here for a reason. Okay? He's fulfilling a duty. Duty. But that duty being allowing you motherfuckers to have this free will you think you have, so that you can choose to do evil. Because without the devil giving you that free will, you would just be automatons just all day doing the right thing, praising God. So the devil has to be there. And who's the devil? Who's the Satan? What does his name even mean? The adversary. Okay? He does that. He causes you to do that which is adverse to what God wants you to do. At the behest of God. Just look at the whole Job story. Job was doing just fine. And then he was like, check out Job, Satan. And Satan's like, bro, he's only that way because you give him everything. I bet he wouldn't be that way if you took it all, or if he didn't have all that shit. And God's like, all right, take it all in. Shit. Take it all. I don't give a fuck. It's like, so again, everything was cool, but he just made the devil do shit. Like, here, go fuck him up. Fuck him up. Kill his kids. Destroy his crops. Just go ham, son. Just don't kill him, though. Okay? That's for me. So, yeah, I don't know what to tell y'all, bro. Like, stop giving the devil such a hard time. I mean, granted, they don't exist. There is no devil. There's no demons. There's no gods. There's no angels. Okay? But if we're just going to play along, then stop giving the devil a hard time. What the fuck? He just doing his job. So, I mean, you like this notion of free will, don't you? All right, then. The devil is not to blame. It is the God. So anytime I see someone doing something evil, I'm like, that motherfucker's godly as shit. You know what I mean? If I see someone behaving in just some of the most unbecoming ways, I would describe that person's behavior as angelic. You know what I mean? I'm tired of people giving the demons and the devil a hard time. Like, that motherfucker, like, read the Bible. Explain to me where he's like, the devil killed all these people. The devil was like, go into that town and kill everyone. Children, animals, spare no one. Kill them all, fucker. You know, it's like, that wasn't the devil. Okay, it sounds devilish if you think the devil is associated with evil. So yeah, that sounds pretty fucking wicked. But no, that's what utterly destroy the Amalekites. Utterly destroy. Why? What did the babies do? Okay, what did the animals do? Utterly destroy them. Purge the evil from your midst. Bitch! The God of the Bible, bro, is the evil one. I'm convinced. You know, I've yet to see a story in the Bible where the devil's like, I'm murdering all those people, bro. In fact, if they don't put blood on their doorsteps, I'm killing all their firstborn children. Fuck that shit. Nah, but the God did. The devil didn't go through killing everyone's firstborn child, but the God did. Okay. Why I sound like fucking, what's his name? And another one. Fucking DJ Khaled, because you know that last album or whatever his album was. I don't know which album it was, but he had put out an album called God Did. And I'm like, yeah, God sure did. All that horrible, heinous, wicked cruelty in the Bible. God did. Sure did. I mean, he sort of had a penchant for killing off all kinds of people. You know what I mean? Just like in Genesis, when he killed everyone with the flood. He was like, you know what? I should have never made you motherfuckers. I regret having made you motherfuckers. I'm about to kill everybody. From the motherfuckers flying in the sky to the creepy crawling things on the ground. I'm killing them all. Starting over. Starting over with these 8 people and some animals. You know what I mean? And then he did it again. You know what I'm saying? It's like, man. Tell the motherfucker to go kill off the Amalekites. Go and kill off all the Canaanites. You know, just Deuteronomy 20, verse 10 through 20, where he's like, you know, go up to a city and make it a peace offering. And by peace offering, we mean you're going to work for us as slaves. Okay? And that's just the way it is. No Celine Dion. And then if they say, sure, then that's what it's going to be. But if they say, hell no, we're not, what the fuck you mean? This is our land. We're already here. And we're not about to be your slaves. What the hell? No. So if they do that, if that's their response, kill them all. You can save the little girls for yourselves, but kill everyone else. Animals too. It's like, that's not a loving God. And if that's supposed to be Jesus, let some Christians tell it, then Jesus can go fuck himself. Jesus can fuck himself with shards of the wood from the cross he was crucified on, that piece of shit. How about that? No lube. No lube. So, where were we? Many evolutionary transitions are elegantly documented by more or less continuous series of gradually changing intermediate fossils. Some are not. And these are the famous gaps Michael Shermer has wittily pointed out, that if a new fossil discovery neatly bisects a gap, the creationists will declare that there are now twice as many gaps. But in any case, note yet again the unwarranted use of a default. If there are no fossils to document a postulated evolutionary transition, the default assumption is that there was no evolutionary transition. Therefore, God must have intervened. It is utterly illogical to demand complete documentation of every step of any narrative, whether in evolution or any other science. You might as well demand, before convicting somebody of murder, a complete cinematic record of the murderer's every step leading up to the crime with no missing frames. Only a tiny fraction of corpses fossilize. Did you know that? I'll say it again. Only a tiny fraction of corpses fossilize. You know what I mean? And we're lucky to have as many intermediate fossils as we do have. Okay? We could easily have had no fossils at all. And still, the evidence for evolution from other sources, such as molecular genetics and geographical distribution, would still be overwhelmingly strong. We don't even need, fossils whatsoever. We got enough evidence to prove evolution without fossils. We don't even fucking need them. But we have them. So it's nice. It's like a cherry on top. You know what I mean? On the other hand, evolution makes the strong prediction that if a single fossil turned up in the wrong geological stratum, the theory would be blown out of the water. That's all you would need, really, to disprove evolution. Just find something, a fossil in the geological column that shouldn't be where it is. You know what I mean? Like if you saw like a human fragment, let's say a fucking skull. Let's say you found a human skull down in like where like the single cellular organisms were in that layer. And it's like, all right, well, then I guess evolution's disproven, motherfucker, because that should not be there. Okay. Like, period. So, but that hasn't happened. And it won't happen. So, deal with it, Christians. When challenged by a zealous Paparian to say how evolution could ever be falsified, J.B.S. Haldane famously growled, "Fossil rabbits in the Precambrian." No such anachronistic fossils have ever been authentically found, despite discredited creationist legends of human skulls and the coal measures and human footprints interspersed with dinosaurs. Gaps, by default in the mind of the creationist, are filled by God. The same applies to all apparent precipices on the massif of mountain probable, where the graded slope is not immediately obvious or is otherwise overlooked. Areas where there is a lack of data or a lack of understanding are automatically assumed to belong by default to God. The speedy resort to a dramatic proclamation of irreducible complexity represents a failure of the imagination. Some biological organ, if not an eye, with a bacterial flagellar motor or a biochemical pathway, is decreed without further argument to be irreducibly complex. No attempt is made to demonstrate irreducible complexity. Notwithstanding the cautionary tales of eyes, wings, and many other things, each new candidate for the dubious accolade is assumed to be transparently, self-evidently irreducibly complex, its status asserted by fiat. Okay. But think about it. Since irreducible complexity is being deployed as an argument for design, it should no more be asserted by fiat than design itself. You might as well simply assert that the weasel frog demonstrates design without further argumentation or justification. There is no way to do science. That is no way to do science. The logic turns out to be more convincing than this. I, insert your own name, am personally unable to think of any way in which, insert the biological phenomenon, could have been built up step by step. Therefore, it is irreducibly complex. That means it's designed. Put it like that, and you immediately see that this is vulnerable to some scientist coming along and finding an intermediate, or at least imagining a plausible intermediate. Even if no scientists do come up with an explanation, it is plain bad logic to assume that design will fare any better. The reasoning that underlies intelligent design theory is lazy and defeatist. Classic God of the Gaps reasoning. I have previously dubbed it an argument from personal incredulity. Imagine you're watching a really great magic trick. The celebrated conjuring duo Penn and Teller have a routine in which they simultaneously appear to shoot each other with pistols, and each appears to catch the bullet in his teeth. Elaborate precautions are taken to scratch identifying marks on the bullets before they're put in the guns. The whole procedure is witnessed at close range by volunteers from the audience who have experience of firearms, and apparently all possibilities for trickery are eliminated. Teller's marked bullet ends up in Penn's mouth, and Penn's marked bullet ends up in Teller's. I, Richard Dawkins, am utterly unable to think of any way in which this could be a trick. The argument from personal incredulity screams from the depths of my pre-scientific brain centers and almost compels me to say, it must be a miracle. There is no scientific explanation. It's got to be supernatural. But the still small voice of scientific education speaks a different message. Penn and Teller are world-class illusionists. There is a perfectly good explanation. It is just that I'm too naive or too unobservant or too unimaginative to think of it. That is the proper response to a conjuring trick. It is also the proper response to a biological phenomenon that appears to be irreducibly complex. Those people who leap from personal bafflement at a natural phenomenon straight away to hasty invocations of the supernatural are no better than the fools who see a conjuring bending a spoon and leap to the conclusion that it's paranormal. Hold on. Because I dropped the blunt and then just left it there. So, hold on. And we're back. But before I continue, that heavily outweighs the evidence for the existence of a God. That is true. Oh my God. Justin's in here? Holy shit, I feel vindicated. I'm special now. Justin is in my life. I'm done. I made it. I made it, y'all. Petunia, you hear this shit? Fucking deconstruction zone Justin is here. Now I gotta step the game up. If y'all, I don't even know why I'm saying this. Of course y'all know who he is. But if you don't know who Justin is from Deconstruction Zone and DZ Debates, I highly recommend you subscribe to his channel. Because those phone calls are peak. But it also demonstrates just how unhinged your typical Christian is. Okay? With the whole baby paste. That's the best shit right there. Like, bro, if your God told you that I need you to go to the local fucking, go to your nearest fucking child care center, take all the babies and kill them all. But in order to kill them, I want you to run them over. Okay? Run them over repeatedly so many times that their bodies just become like a paste. And then I want you to pave your fucking driveway with it so that you can drive over those dead babies every single day. Would you do it? The amount of Christians who say, yup, is astounding. Okay? I'm like, you motherfuckers are unhinged. But they say that because they think that there's no chance that their God, assuming it existed, would ever command such a thing. Despite the fact that he's commanded similar things. You know, obviously not running things over with cars, but definitely killing babies. So, there's that. Yeah. In his book, 7 Clues to the Origin of Life, the Scottish chemist A.G. Cairns Smith makes an additional point using the analogy of an arch. A freestanding arch of rough-hewn stones and no mortar can be a stable structure, but it's irreducibly complex. It collapses if any one stone is removed. How, then, was it built in the first place? One way is to pile a solid heap of stones, then carefully remove stones one by one. More generally, there are many structures that are irreducible in the sense that they cannot survive the subtraction of any part, but which were built with the aid of scaffolding that was subsequently subtracted and is no longer visible. Once the structure is completed, the scaffolding can be removed safely and the structure remains standing. In evolution, too, the organ or structure you're looking at may have had scaffolding in an ancestor which has since been removed. I like that analogy. That's a good way to look at it. Irreducible complexity is not a new idea, but the phrase itself was invented by the creationist Michael Behe in 1996. He is credited, if credited is the word, with moving creationism into a new area of biology, biochemistry and cell biology, which he saw as perhaps a happier hunting ground for gaps than eyes or wings. His best approach to a good example was the bacterial flagellar motor. The flagellar motor of bacteria is a prodigy of nature. It drives the only known example outside human technology of a freely rotating axle. Wheels for big animals would, I suspect, be genuine examples of irreducible complexity, and this is probably why they don't exist. How would the nerves and blood vessels get across the bearing? Anywho, the flagellum is a thread-like propeller with which the bacterium burrows its way through the water. I say burrows rather than swims because on the bacterial scale of existence, a liquid such as water would not feel as a liquid feels to us. It would feel more like treacle or jelly or even sand. And the bacterium would seem to burrow or screw its way through the water, then swim. Unlike the so-called flagellum of larger organisms like protozoans, the bacterial flagellum doesn't just wave about like a whip or row like an oar. It has a true, freely rotating axle which turns continuously inside a bearing, driven by a remarkable little molecular motor. At the molecular level, the motor uses essentially the same principle as muscle, but in free rotation rather than in intermittent contraction. It has been happily described as a tiny outboard motor, although by engineering standards and usually for a biological mechanism, it is a spectacularly inefficient one. Without a word of justification, explanation, or amplification, Behe simply proclaims the bacterial flagellar motor to be irreducibly complex. Since he offers no argument in favor of his assertion, we may begin by suspecting a failure of his imagination. He further alleges that specialist biological literature has ignored the problem. The falsehood of this allegation was massively, and to be embarrassingly, documented in the court of Judge John E. Jones in Pennsylvania in 2005, where Behe was testifying as an expert witness on behalf of a group of creationists who had tried to impose intelligent design creationism on the science curriculum of a local public school. A move of breathtaking inanity, to quote Judge Jones directly. This wasn't the only embarrassment Behe suffered at the hearing, as we'll see. The key to demonstrating irreducible complexity is to show that none of the parts could have been useful on their own. They all needed to be in place before any of them could do any good. In fact, molecular biologists have no difficulty in finding parts functioning outside the whole, both for the flagellar motor and for Behe's other alleged examples of irreducible complexity. The point is well put by Kenneth Miller of Brown University. For my money, the most persuasive nemesis of intelligent design, not least because he's a devout Christian. I frequently recommend Miller's book, Finding Darwin's God, to religious people who write to me having been bamboozled by Behe. I've been saying, I spilled the coffee on me, whatever. I've been saying Behe's name different ways since I've been reading his name. Like, I've been called him Behe. But anywho, in the case of the bacterial rotary engine, okay, let's start that over. In the case of the bacterial rotary engine, Miller calls our attention to a mechanism called the Type 3 secretory system of, or TTS, TTSS. Type 3 secretory system. The Type 3 secretory system is not used for rotary movement. It is one of several systems used by parasitic bacteria for pumping toxic substances through their cell walls to poison their host organism. On our human scale, we might think of pouring or squirting a liquid through a hole. But once again, on the bacterial scale, things look different. Each molecule of secreted substance is a large protein with a definite three-dimensional structure on the same scale as the TTSS's own. More like a solid sculpture than a liquid. Each molecule is individually propelled through a carefully shaped mechanism, like an automated slot machine dispensing, say, toys or bottles, rather than a simple hole through which a substance might flow. The goods dispenser itself is made of a rather small number of protein molecules, each one comparable in size and complexity to the molecules being dispensed through it. Interestingly, these bacterial slot machines are often similar across bacteria that are not closely related. The genes for making them have probably been copied and pasted from other bacteria, something that bacteria are remarkably adept at doing, and a fascinating topic in its own right, but I must press on. The protein molecules that form the structure of the TTSS are very similar to components of the flagellar motor. To the evolutionist, it is clear that TTSS components were commandeered for a new, but not wholly unrelated, function when the flagellar motor evolved. Given that the TTSS is tugging molecules through itself, it is not surprising that it uses a rudimentary version of the principle used by the flagellar motor, which tugs the molecules of the axle round and round. Evidently, crucial components of the flagellar motor were already in place and working before the flagellar motor evolved. Commandeering existing mechanisms is an obvious way to which an apparently irreducibly complex piece of apparatus could climb Mount Improbable. A lot more work needs to be done, of course, and I'm sure it will be. Such work would never be done if scientists were satisfied with a lazy default, such as intelligent design theory. But here's the message that an imaginary intelligent design theorist might broadcast to scientists. If you don't understand how something works, never mind. Just give up and say, God did it. Okay? You don't know how the universe works? God did it. Okay? You don't understand how memories are laid down in the brain? Excellent. Is photosynthesis a bafflingly complex process? Wonderful. Please don't go to work on the problem. Just give up and appeal to God. Dear scientists, don't work on your mysteries. Bring us your mysteries, for we can use them. Don't squander precious ignorance by researching it away. We need those glorious gaps as a last refuge for God. St. Augustine said it quite openly. There is another form of temptation, even more fraught with danger. This is the disease of curiosity. It is this which drives us to try and discover the secrets of nature, those secrets which are beyond our understanding, which can avail us nothing, and which man should not wish to learn. Oh, wow. Augustine was a champion of dumbassery. That motherfucker was like, what the fuck you want to learn for? You don't need to learn nothing. Fuck you doing asking questions? That's a problem. Okay? You don't need to, you wouldn't be able to understand it anyway. That was what Augustine talked about. Wow. Another of Behe's favorite alleged examples of irreducible complexity is the immune system. Let Judge Jones himself take up the story. In fact, on cross-examination, Professor Behe was questioned concerning his 1996 claim that science would never find an evolutionary explanation for the immune system. He was presented with 58 peer-reviewed publications, 9 books, and several immunology textbook chapters about the evolution of the immune system. However, he simply insisted that this was still not sufficient evidence of evolution and that it was not good enough. Behe, under cross-examination by Eric Rothschild, chief counsel for the plaintiffs, was forced to admit that he hadn't read most of the 58 peer-reviewed papers. Hardly surprising, for immunology is hard work. Less forgivable is that Behe dismissed such research as unfruitful. It certainly is unfruitful if your aim is to make propaganda among gullible lay people and politicians, rather than to discover important truths about the real world. After listening to Behe, Rothschild eloquently summed up what every honest person in that courtroom must have felt. Thankfully, there are scientists who do search for answers to the questions of the origin of the immune system. It's our defense against debilitating and fatal diseases. The scientists who wrote these books and articles toil in obscurity without book royalties or speaking engagements. Their efforts help us combat and cure serious medical conditions. By contrast, Professor Behe and the entire intelligent design movement are doing nothing to advance scientific or medical knowledge and are telling future generations of scientists, don't bother. As the American geneticist Jerry Coyne put it in his review of Behe's book, quote, if the history of science shows us anything, it is that we get nowhere by labeling our ignorance God. Or, in the words of an eloquent blogger commenting on an article on intelligent design in The Guardian by Coyne and me, quote, why is God considered an explanation for anything? It's not. It's a failure to explain, a shrug of the shoulders, a shrug of the shoulders, and I don't know, dressed up in spirituality and ritual. If someone credits something to God, generally what it means is that they haven't a clue. So they're attributing it to an unreachable, unknowable sky fairy. Ask for an explanation of where that bloke came from, and odds are you'll get a vague, pseudo-philosophical reply about having always existed or being outside time or nature, which of course doesn't explain anything. Darwinism raises our consciousness in other ways. Evolved organs, elegant and efficient as they often are, also demonstrate revealing flaws, exactly as you'd expect if they have an evolutionary history, and exactly as you wouldn't expect if they were designed. I have discussed examples in other books. The recurrent laryngeal nerve, for one, which betrays its evolutionary history in a massive and wasteful detour on its way to its destination. Many of our human ailments, from lower back pain to hernias, prolapsed uteruses, and our susceptibility to sinus infections, all are direct results from the fact that we now walk upright with a body that was shaped over hundreds of millions of years to walk on all fours. Our consciousness is also raised by the cruelty and wastefulness of natural selection. Predators seem beautifully designed to catch prey animals, while the prey animals seem equally beautifully designed to escape them. Whose side is God on? The Anthropic Principle, planetary version. That's page 162. It's just one of the sub-chapters. But I gotta pause so that I can hit this, drink some of this coffee while it's still relatively warm. It's not relatively warm. And see what you guys been saying. Flagellar motor. Okay, I missed it. The best community is an immunity against the Christardanity. That's an interesting way to say that. You are young. I didn't get that. Lil! What's up, Lil? I want some coffee. Me too, Bear. Did y'all know that Justin was in here? He may not be now, but he was earlier. And I'm so taken aback by that. I don't know if that's the right phrase. I am, fuck it. I'm fangirling. Okay? That's what's going on. I mean, mostly because he inspired me to put together a cheat sheet for myself. You know what I mean? Because when I subscribed and became a member of the Deconstruction Zone, I got access to his deconstruction cheat sheet. You know what I mean? That has a lot of information on there for those of you who would require a cheat sheet regarding certain biblical passages and whatnot. So I've compiled my own, so I've been making a cheat sheet, if you will. Like I've just been writing down things that come up regularly, subjects that come up regularly, that I have a biblical response for, you know what I mean? Or just like shit that I notice that I'll point out, that I'll, and then also like, I know Justin though, about Rabbi Tovia Singer, because he's had him on his channel a few times. So I got his book, and it's a 2-volume book, but I only got the first volume, you know what I mean? It's a big fucking book, but that's very, it's dense, just in that there's a lot of like, it's like a lot of like leg work in there. You know what I mean? Like it's not just like reading some shit. It's like charts and graphs and like comparing texts and all kinds of shit. It's, man, he all over the place. And then he got the fucking the original Hebrew language, and then how it was translated into the Greek, and then like how you read it, and it's like, bro, this is deep. This is comprehensive as hell, you know. But and I haven't finished it as a result. Like, cause some of that shit's tedious. It's like reading over all the fucking, and such was son of such and such, who was also son of such and such, who begat this person and that person who begat that. It's like reading that shit in the Bible. It's like, God damn, this is tedious, you know. So it was kind of like that because there's just so much of that shit in there, as opposed to him just saying like, "Yo, it's this," and it's like he's it's a book full of receipts, in my opinion. Like that's what it is. Like that whole book. Oh, let me grab it so you can see what I'm talking about. Shut up, Donnie B. Let's Get Biblical. Volume 1 by Rabbi Tovia Singer. You know, you can tell. Like, look how far I got. Hold on. Can you see the fucking? Where I'm at. This what we already read. This what we have left to read. You know what I'm saying? This part is the oral law is vital to exegesis of the Christian Bible. I hadn't even read that part yet because I've been fucking reading all this other shit. You know what I'm saying? In memory of Rabbi Dr. Leon Katz. I've never read that part before. Great read, Justin. I need to read that. Yeah, it's I mean, I recommend it. I would recommend a more scientific book first, though. You know what I mean? Because that's just explaining like Judaism, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? And how Christianity is pretty much just bullshit. You know what I'm saying? And it shows the ways in which the authors of some of the Christian books, like the New Testament books, how they corrupted the texts. For instance, like just for instance, and I know I probably mentioned it before, but for instance, in Matthew 1 verse 23, where he's like, "This was done to fulfill the prophet," or in Isaiah, and then you go to Isaiah and you see that it had nothing to do at all. Isaiah 7:14 had nothing at all to do with Jesus. Had nothing to do with the Messiah. You know what I mean? In fact, the sign that was, and it was a sign. You know what I mean? But the prophecy was a sign, and a sign is something you can see. Okay, a virgin being pregnant isn't a sign like that. What am I supposed to be looking at? You know what I mean? It's like, so the sign was that this child, by the time it reached a certain level of maturity, certain things would be happening in the world. You know what I mean? It was specifically talking about King Ahaz. His kingdom was under threat by two other kingdoms. You know what I mean? And he was like, "Oh, fuck. They about to come get me and shit." So the Lord sent Isaiah to tell King Ahaz, like, "It'll be all right, bro. Just ask me for a sign." You know what I'm saying? Which I still think is weird. It's like, if you gonna give him a sign, just give it to him. Why you gotta ask for it? Anyway, but Ahaz was like, I don't want to, And so Isaiah's like, "God damn it, fuck. Well, I'm gonna give it to you anyway, okay? This bitch is pregnant right now, all right? And by the time that child is like drinking milk and eating honey or whatever, those kingdoms that threaten you will be no more. Okay. In fact, by the time that child knows the difference between right and wrong, those kingdoms won't even exist. The lands will be desolate. Okay. And that's exactly what the fuck happened. You know what I'm saying? So it had nothing to do with Jesus. Jesus would have been born 700 fucking years later. You know what I mean? Why would him being told about some baby being born 700 years hence help his situation in the present? It doesn't. So just that context alone is like, all right, well, all right then. If Jesus is who you're saying he was, if Jesus is Emmanuel, then what are the two kingdoms that were warring at the time of his birth in Bethlehem, motherfucker? Okay, so I'm just saying. So when you see shit like that, not only that, but the word that they use for virgin isn't correct. You know what I mean? I mean, it's correct for the. Oh, they hate when I mention Septuagint because the Septuagints we have nowadays aren't really the actual Septuagint. Because the original Septuagint only translated the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible before it was destroyed. I think when the Library of Alexandria was destroyed, if memory serves me correctly. So that being said, the word that they use for virgin is, you know, I guess it's correct as far as the Greek translation is concerned, but the Greek translation of the word that was in the Hebrew wasn't that. You know what I mean? It just meant young woman. Like, and all you can tell by a young woman is that she's young and a girl. That's it. You don't know what her sexual history was, you know. So the word that they used in the original Hebrew just meant a young woman. But somehow there was a mix up in the translation, and in the Greek they thought that that word, you know, could also mean virgin or some shit. I forget how they used it. You know what I mean? But they ended up using a word that meant virgin, and that is not at all what they meant in the Hebrew. So they just mistranslated it. Whoever translated Matthew, or whoever translated Isaiah when they were writing Matthew. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? So when you see shit like that, it's like, well, why? Why would I trust anything else in this goddamn book? Like, that's clearly a fabrication, you know. Like Matthew 1:23, that's all I needed to see. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, all right, so I read that, and I was like, and this is to fulfill the prophecy. You go there, it was like another one. I can't remember the exact verse, but he was talking about, and this was done to fulfill the prophecy, out of Egypt I called my son. And it's like, so then you go to that prophecy, and it wasn't even a prophecy. He was just talking about, like, remember when I brought you motherfuckers out of Egypt? It's like, my son at that time was just the nation of Israel. Okay. My son, Jacob / the nation of Israel. Okay. And he's just saying, out of Egypt I called my son. Yeah, I brought you motherfuckers out of the slavery that you were under in Egypt. And then I made y'all wander in the desert for 40 years. I don't know what the fuck was up with that, but just saying, it had nothing to do with whatever Matthew was trying to say it had to do with. So you can't even trust the book of Matthew, son. Not that you could have anyway, since a lot of what he said came from Mark, same as Luke. You know, not to mention there are other sources, you know what I'm saying? Because there's, not only did Matthew and Luke copy Mark, but they also had their own independent sources. Like there's also a Q source, you know what I'm saying? And there's an M source that's specific to Matthew. And then there's an L source where he had information specific to Luke that Matthew didn't, or Mark didn't have, you know what I mean? Or I guess that didn't come from Q, or maybe Q is the M and L. I don't fucking know. I think they're all different though. Well, I know M and L are different, and I just don't know if Q encompasses M and L or if Q is its own thing, and then there's M and then there's L, which is what I think it is. I think Q is its own thing, and then there's M and then there's L. Thank you, and mashallah. Yeah, man, it's I'm glad you. Since you said that, that just made me think of what the child's name was. That's the only thing I was a little torn about, though. You know what I mean? Because it said that the woman who was pregnant with the child in Isaiah 7:14, she would call the child Emmanuel. But Isaiah, who allegedly is this child's father, you know what I mean? Allegedly. Or no. Yeah. Yeah. But Isaiah is to call the child. See, this is how the Rabbi Tovia Singer, this is how he explains it. He said that Emmanuel is and Mahershala Hashbaz. Mahershala Hashbaz. Yeah. Are the same person. It's just Isaiah calls him Mahershala Hashbaz, and the prophetess calls him Emmanuel. You know what I mean? Like that's so it's the same child, but being called different names. For me, that was a little dubious. Like I don't know what to make of that because it's not clear from the text itself if we're speaking about the same child. Just like why would maybe there's a reason, but it's like why would the mother call the child a different name than what the father would call him? Like, hold on. Q is the source of the parts that are in Matthew and Luke and are shared. M is unique to Matthew and L is unique to Luke. Your memory's good. Sweet. Thanks, Justin. I needed that. Hi from England. What's up, Loki? Hello from Ohio. I just thought about it. Justin from Ohio, too. Ohio in the house. You know what I mean? Of course, I'm in the shittier part of Ohio. I'm like 45 minutes if I speed north of Cincinnati, which is the real city. You know what I'm saying? Dayton is just this bullshit made up wannabe city. It's trying though. It's really trying, But like, yeah, I'm in Dayton, and you want something fun to do, you gotta leave Dayton. Okay, like Cleveland is shitting on Dayton, Cincinnati is shitting on Dayton, Columbus is shitting on Dayton. Like all the other bigger cities, the more popular, more well-known cities are shitting on Dayton, bro. We ain't got shit here. We used to be like a manufacturing hub. Like we used to have like all kind of shit here. We had NCR, Firestone, fucking what was the Goodyear tire? Like we had all kinds of shit, and then all that shit's gone. So now it's just a bunch of fucking abandoned housing projects, a lot of which have been torn down now, but still. And and jobs haven't returned. It's just we are a failing city. Okay, but the investments that we've been getting have been largely benefiting the people who already have money here. So it's not like we've been putting any money into, grocery stores in poor neighborhoods, or as they call them, grocery deserts, food deserts. We're not investing in that way. We're not building any affordable houses. It's mostly been like luxury condos and, nice shopping areas for those who have money. They're not even building them in areas that are populated by poor people. Like they're building them in like for me, for instance, Austin Landing. Anyone who's familiar with Dayton knows about Austin Landing. Where Austin Landing is just like this nicer, more affluent area that I feel like most of the city's money been going to that type of shit. You know what I'm saying? It's like, well, where's the shit for like the poor people, man, the working people? Anyway. Fucking back to the God delusion. I think. No, I gotta warm my coffee up. Y'all wasn't even gonna say that. Hold on, let me warm my coffee up. While that's doing that, let's see what the cats are up to. Dade B, what's up, man? you just out here. You just out here by yourself? I need to cut the grass. Yeah. I'm gonna do it this weekend now. Where your brother and sisters? Aha! I see you, Petunia. You tried to hide. Your son is outside. He on the table. I know you don't care. I just thought I'd tell you. Your little brother out on the table. Oh no, he not. He right here. Donnie B, you came in. You came in, Donnie B. Meow. Hey, look at your sister. She looks unimpressed. Where Louie at? You don't know? Where he at? Louie! Oh, there you go. Louie, man. Everybody else in the living room, son. You the only one in here. Donnie B is my favorite too, for real. Louie is the nicest one though. But he's the oldest brother. Even though he act like the youngest brother. Ain't that right? What you doing? All right, goddammit. Damn, the coffee. All right. I'm gonna read one paragraph and then I'm gonna be done. Cause I got like shit to do. You know what I mean? Like I immediately came home from work and like started doing this. You know what I'm saying? So I still gotta like make my bed and shit. Yes, I make my bed every day. Every day. I do push-ups, 200 push-ups every morning, Monday through Friday, and I make my bed every day, Monday through Sunday. So. Gap theologians who may have given up on eyes and wings, flagellar motors and immune systems, often pin their remaining hopes on the origin of life. The root of evolution in non-biological chemistry somehow seems to present a bigger gap than any particular transition during subsequent evolution. And in one sense, it is a bigger gap. That one sense is quite specific, and it offers no comfort to the religious apologist. The origin of life only had to happen once. We, therefore, can allow it to have been an extremely improbable event, many orders of magnitude more improbable than most people realize, as I shall show. Subsequent evolutionary steps are duplicated in more or less similar ways throughout millions and millions of species independently and continually and repeatedly throughout geological time. Therefore, to explain the evolution of complex life, we cannot resort to the same kind of statistical reasoning as we are able to apply to the origin of life. The events that constitute run-of-the-mill evolution, as distinct from its singular origin, cannot have been very improbable. The distinction may seem puzzling, as I must admit it further, and I must explain it further, using the so-called anthropic principle. The anthropic principle was named by the mathematician Brandon Carter in 1974 and expanded by the physicists John Barrow and Frank Tipler in their book on the subject. The anthropic argument is usually applied to the cosmos, and I'll come to that. But I'll introduce the idea on a smaller planetary scale. We exist here on Earth. Therefore, Earth must be the kind of planet that is capable of generating and supporting us, however unusual, even unique, that kind of planet might be. For example, our kind of life cannot survive without liquid water. Indeed, exobiologists searching for evidence of extraterrestrial life are scanning the heavens in practice for signs of water around a typical star like our sun. There is a so-called Goldilocks zone, not too hot, not too cold, just right. For planets with liquid water, a thin band of orbit lies between those that are too far from the star, where water freezes, and too close, where water boils. Presumably, too, a life-friendly orbit has to be neatly circular. A fiercely elliptical orbit, like that of the newly discovered 10th planet, informally known as Xena, would at best allow the planet to whiz briefly through the Goldilocks zone once every few decades or centuries. Xena itself doesn't get into the Goldilocks zone at all, even at its closest approach to the sun, which it reaches once every 560 Earth years. The temperature of Halley's Comet varies between about 47 degrees Celsius at perihelion and minus 270 degrees Celsius at aphelion. Earth's orbit, like those of all the planets, is typically an ellipse. It is closest to the sun in January and furthest away in July. But a circle is a special case of an ellipse, and Earth's orbit is so close to circular that it never strays out of the Goldilocks zone. Earth's situation in the near solar system is propitious in other ways that singled it out for the evolution of life. For instance, the massive gravitational vacuum cleaner of Jupiter is well placed to intercept asteroids that might otherwise threaten us with lethal collision. Earth's single relatively large moon serves to stabilize our axis of rotation and helps to foster life in various other ways. Our sun is unusual in not being a binary, locked in mutual orbit with a companion star. It is possible for binary stars to have planets, but their orbits are likely to be too chaotically variable to encourage the evolution of life. Two main explanations have been offered for our planet's peculiar friendliness to life. The design theory says that God made the world, placed it in the Goldilocks zone, and deliberately set up all the details for our benefit. The anthropic approach is very different, and it has a faintly Darwinian feel. The great majority of planets in the universe are not in the Goldilocks zone of their respective stars and are not suitable for life. None of that majority has life. However small the minority of planets with just the right conditions for life may be, we necessarily have to be on one of that minority because here we are thinking about it. It's a strange fact, incidentally, that religious apologists love the anthropic principle. For some reason, that makes no sense at all. They think it supports their case. Precisely the opposite is true. The anthropic principle, like natural selection, is an alternative to the design hypothesis. It provides a rational, design-free explanation for the fact that we find ourselves in a situation propitious to our existence. I think the confusion arises in the religious mind because the anthropic principle is only ever mentioned in the context of the problem that it solves, namely the fact that we live in a life-friendly place. What the religious mind then fails to grasp is that two candidate solutions are offered to the problem. God is one, the anthropic principle is the other. They are alternatives. Liquid water is a necessary condition for life as we know it, but it is far from sufficient. Life still has to originate in the water, and the origin of life may have been a highly improbable occurrence. Darwinian evolution proceeds merrily once life is originated. But how does life get started? The origin of life was the chemical event or series of chemical events whereby the vital conditions for natural selection first came about. The major ingredient was heredity, either DNA or more probably something that copies like DNA but less accurately, perhaps the related molecule RNA. Once the vital ingredient, some kind of genetic molecule, is in place, true Darwinian natural selection can follow, and complex life emerges as the eventual consequence. But the spontaneous arising by chance of the first hereditary molecule strikes many as improbable. Maybe it is. Maybe it is very, very improbable, and I shall dwell on this, for it is central to this section of the book. The origin of life is a flourishing, if speculative, subject for research. The expertise required for it is chemistry, and it is not mine. I watch from the sidelines with engaged curiosity, and I shall not be surprised if within the next few years, chemists report that they have successfully midwifed a new origin of life in the laboratory. Nevertheless, it hasn't happened yet, and it is still possible to maintain that the probability of its happening is and always was exceedingly low. Although, it did happen once. Just as we did with the Goldilocks orbits, we can make the point that however improbable the origin of life might be, we know it happened on Earth because here we are. Again, as with temperature, there are two hypotheses to explain what happened: the design hypothesis and the scientific or anthropic hypothesis. The design approach postulates a god who wrought a deliberate miracle, struck the prebiotic soup with his divine fire, and launched DNA, or something equivalent, on its momentous career. Again, as with Goldilocks, the anthropic alternative to the design hypothesis is statistical. Scientists invoke the magic of large numbers. It has been estimated that there are 1,030,000,000,000 planets in our galaxy, and about 100 billion galaxies in the universe. Knocking a few knots off for reasons of ordinary prudence, a billion billion is a conservative estimate of the number of available planets in the universe. Now, suppose the origin of life, the spontaneous arising of something equivalent to DNA, really was a quite staggeringly improbable event. Suppose it was so improbable as to occur only one in a billion planets. A grant-giving body would laugh at any chemist who admitted that the chance of his proposed research succeeding was only 1 in 100. But here we are, talking about odds of 1 in a billion. And yet, even with such absurdly long odds, life will still have arisen on a billion planets, of which Earth, of course, is one. The conclusion is so surprising, I'll say it again. If the odds of life originating spontaneously on a planet were 1,000,000,000 to 1 against, nevertheless, that stupefying improbable event would still happen on a billion planets. The chance of finding any one of those billion life-bearing planets recalls the proverbial needle in a haystack. But we don't have to go out of our way to find a needle because, back to the anthropic principle, any beings capable of looking must necessarily be sitting on one of those prodigiously rare needles before they even start the search. Any probability statement is made in the context of a certain level of ignorance. If we know nothing about a planet, we may postulate the odds of life arising on it, say, 1 in a billion. But if we now import some new assumptions into our estimate, things change. A particular planet may have some peculiar properties, perhaps a special profile of element abundances in its rocks, which shift the odds in favor of life's emerging. Some planets, in other words, are more Earth-like than ours. Earth itself, of course, is especially Earth-like. This should give encouragement to our chemists trying to recreate the event in the lab, for it could shorten the odds against their success. But my earlier calculation demonstrated that even a chemical model with odds of success as low as 1 in a billion would still predict that life would arise on a billion planets in the universe. And the beauty of the anthropic principle is that it tells us, against all intuition, that a chemical model need only predict that life will arise on one planet in a billion billion to give us a good and entirely satisfying explanation for the presence of life here. I do not for a moment believe the origin of life was anywhere near so improbable in practice. I think it is definitely worth spending money on trying to duplicate the event in the lab, and by the same token, on the SETI, because I think it is likely that there is intelligent life out somewhere. Even accepting the most pessimistic estimate of the probability that life might spontaneously originate, this statistical argument completely demolishes any suggestion that we should postulate design to fill the gap. Of all the apparent gaps in the evolutionary story, the origin of life gap can seem unbridgeable to brains calibrated to assess likelihood and risk on an everyday scale, the scale on which grant-giving bodies assess research proposals submitted by chemists. Yet, even so big a gap as this is easily filled by statistically informed science, while the very same statistical science rules out a divine creator on the ultimate 747 grounds we met earlier. But now to return to the interesting point that launched this section. Suppose somebody tried to explain the general phenomenon of biological adaptation along the same lines as we've just applied to the origin of life, appealing to an immense number of available planets. The observed fact is that every species and every organ that has ever been looked at within every species is good at what it does. The wings of birds, bees, and bats are good at flying. Eyes are good at seeing. Leaves are good at photosynthesizing. We live on a planet where we are surrounded by perhaps 10 million species, each of one of which independently displays a powerful illusion of apparent design. Each species is well fitted to its particular way of life. Could we get away with the huge numbers of planets argument to explain all these separate illusions of design? No, we could not. Repeat, not. We could not. Don't even think about it. This is important, for it goes to the heart of the most serious misunderstanding of Darwinism. It doesn't matter how many planets we have to play with. Lucky chance could never be enough to explain the lush diversity of living complexity on Earth in the same way as we used it to explain the existence of life here in the first place. The evolution of life is a completely different case from the origin of life. Because, to repeat, the origin of life was or could have been a unique event which had to happen only once. The adaptive fit of species to their separate environments, on the other hand, is millionfold and ongoing. It is clear that here on Earth we are dealing with a generalized process for optimizing biological species, a process that works all over the planet, on all continents and islands, and at all times. We can safely predict that if we wait another 10 million years, a whole new set of species will be as well adopted to their ways of life as today's species are to theirs. This is a recurrent, predictable, multiple phenomenon, not a piece of statistical luck recognized with hindsight. And thanks to Darwin, we know how it is brought about by natural selection. Blunt number 2, son. I said I was gonna stop after that, like that one paragraph, and I just kept fucking going, dude. Cause he was saying some, he was cooking right there, and I was just like, let him cook. Fuck it, I want to hear what he's saying. I've already read this book once, but it was a while ago. Actually, when did I read this book last? It's always like, I always make a note when I finish reading a book. I last read it Wednesday, August 13th last year. So it was time for another reading. The anthropic principle. Okay, I swear, I'm going to read until we get down. Like, I'm here. I'm going to read until we get here. Okay. And then I'm done for real, because I got to, like, clean litter boxes and mow the lawn, which I probably won't do until this weekend. And then I got to, like, make my bed and vacuum and all that fun stuff, you know. The anthropic principle is impotent to explain the multifarious details of living creatures. We really need Darwin's powerful crane to account for the diversity of life on Earth, and especially the persuasive illusion of design. The origin of life, by contrast, lies outside the reach of that crane because natural selection cannot proceed without it. Here, the anthropic principle comes into its own. We can deal with the unique origin of life by postulating a very large number of planetary opportunities. Once that initial stroke of luck has been granted, and the anthropic principle most decisively grants it to us, natural selection takes over. And natural selection is emphatically not a matter. Oh, I'm sorry, empathetically is stupid. I meant to say emphatically. Natural selection is emphatically not a matter of luck. Nevertheless, it may be that the origin of life is not the only major gap in the evolutionary story that is bridged by sheer luck, anthropically justified. For example, my colleague Mark Ridley in Mendel's Demon has suggested that the origin of the eukaryotic cell was an even, hold on, has suggested that the origin of the eukaryotic cell was an even more momentous, difficult, and statistically improbable step than the origin of life. The origin of consciousness might be another major gap whose bridging was of the same order of improbability. One-off events like this might be explained by the anthropic principle along the following lines. There are billions of planets that have developed life at the level of bacteria, but only a fraction of these life forms ever made it across the gap to something like the eukaryotic cell. And of these, a yet smaller fraction managed to cross the later Rubicon to consciousness. If both of these are one-off events, we're not dealing with a ubiquitous and all-pervading process as we are with ordinary, run-of-the-mill biological adaptation. The anthropic principle states that since we are alive, eukaryotic and conscious, our planet has to be one of the intensely rare planets that has bridged all three gaps. Natural selection works because it is a cumulative, one-way street to improvement. It needs some luck to get started, and the billions of planets anthropic principle grants it that luck. Maybe a few later gaps in the evolutionary story also need major infusions of luck with anthropic justification. But whatever else we may say, design certainly does not work as an explanation for life because design is ultimately not cumulative and it therefore raises bigger questions than it answers. We live on a planet that is friendly to our kind of life, and we have seen two reasons why this is so. One is that life has evolved to flourish in the conditions provided by this planet. This is because of natural selection. The other reason is the anthropic one. There are billions of planets in the universe, and however small the minority of evolution-friendly planets may be, our planet necessarily has to be one of them. Now it is time to take the anthropic principle back to an earlier stage from biology back to cosmology. And that's where I said I was going to end it at, so that's where I'm ending it. And if you didn't know, the God Delusion, page 169 is where I left off at. So. We're going to pause it there. And then I'm going to go because I got shit to do, like I said. I'm a busy person. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Thanks to my moderators. You know you are, Bear, and others. I really only know that Bear is. And Boogieatron. I don't know Boogie here, though. Day, read Slipknot, fan 666 is on it. Okay. He said, KST-ons. Questions. Is that what you're saying? Boogie at work. Oh, fuck. I should have known. Goddamn Boogie B. Where do you think Tara Lynn is? The earliest one. And Christian Bell said hi. Brian, gonna lie to you. I was on Tara Lynn's channel earlier today. I literally watched all of her content. Like all of it. Shorts, videos, all of it. She is not trolling us. You know what I mean? She is not grifting. Okay. She is really that way. Like, when you read her comments, that's real talk. Like, that's an accurate representation of her. You know what I mean? Like, just watch her video. I couldn't stop. Like, they're not even that interesting. But I just was like, you know, I was transfixed. You know what I'm saying? Just listening, especially the one where she's like she came outside. It seemed almost impromptu. But then there just happened to be some dude out there that was like, I guess, working on her car or some shit. And just the conversation was like, yeah, man, I know the feeling. Like, we've had similar conversations. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I don't know. It was just, and then it was like another video of her like saying it was like jets flying over her house. I'm like, you probably live near an airport. You know what I mean? So that wouldn't be uncommon. In fact, it would be expected. You know, assuming they're jets. But when she showed it, like it didn't even look like a jet. It just looked like a regular ass Boeing 747 or some shit. Like, oh no, it could have been a jet. I don't fucking know. I couldn't really get an idea, of the size from the video. But yeah, man, just she. I almost envy her. You know what I'm saying? Like, I almost wish I could be as aloof, and seemingly free. Like, I don't know. She's just, you know what I mean? Like, I gotta worry and shit. And she just be, I don't know, man. I fucking love Tara Lynn, man. I wish I could meet her one day. As long as she's on her medication, whatever that is. Because some of her comments be coherent. It's just, so when I read them, I'll be like, I have to look at who said it. I'm like, fucking Tara Lynn done took her medication. You know what I'm saying? Like, she done took her medication. This shit is coherent. It makes sense. But most of the time, they don't. That's why I don't be. So when it makes sense, I'm just like, oh, this is probably someone else, And I'll look. Because all I'll see is like, oh, it's Tara Lynn. And I'll read the comment, and it's coherent. And I'm like, wait a minute. Who is this? Is there more than one Tara Lynn? I'm like, no, that's her. All right, so this just must be like the difference between high Tara Lynn and sober Tara Lynn. Sober Tara Lynn, shit. Sober Tara Lynn unhinged. Tara Lynn needs a better drug dealer. I don't even think she do drugs. I just think she literally just throwed off. You know what I mean? I don't mean to talk about it. I'm not trying to talk about her negatively right now, y'all. Like, that's not my goal here. That's not my purpose. I just think she's fascinating. Like you just out here among us. You know what I'm saying? Just, you know what I mean? Like, not locked away or bound tightly in a jacket. You just out here. Unsupervised. Maybe you are supervised. I don't fucking know. You know. No masters, no mistress. Some folks spend a lot of time in quest for the right mans that help and they can actually tolerate. That's true. You know what I mean? Josh Hodgkins, the 6293. I wonder what that means. 6293. You ain't 62 if you was born in 93. Unless June 2nd is your birthday. You know what I'm saying? Justice for live. You silly. All right, y'all. So make sure you go get The God Delusion. It's a thick book, y'all. Look at that. Get you The God Delusion. Get you this big dumbass book. Look at The God Delusion compared to this book. Like, this book big for no reason. Like, it's excessively large. Like why? Why? Thanks, Josh. God ended up in hell and met Satan. And the first thing he asked him was, how does it feel to be the vilest being in the universe? I like how shiny this is. Like, this one's the size of my face. This one's the size of my whole ass head and then some. I'm just saying. You should get it. I also got a book by David Hume just this big. Like, what? Why? Like, why? You couldn't just condense it in some shit like this? Like, I had this big dumbass fucking... Like, that don't fit on no motherfucking bookshelf. It do laying down. sideways. But why would I want it on the shelf like that? Everything else like this. I want it like this. But I gotta put it like this. There. That said, I'm getting a new bookshelf. Like I've been looking for bookcases because I have more books than I have shelf. So I need a new bookshelf. Or I could stop buying books, but I ain't finna do that. You know, I love reading. And I don't ever buy fiction shit. I always buy like academic shit. You know what I mean? Shit that you can, shit from which you can learn, and not just like entertainment. Because I want to be entertained. Why would I read non? Okay, okay. I can see reading nonfiction, but that's just like depends on the nonfiction. Not all nonfiction is the same. Okay, some nonfiction is very good, and you can learn from it. You know, but just saying. Sorry, I accidentally pressed post comment icon. I wear a size 13. I don't know what I wear in the UK. Hold on, let me look. In the UK, I wear a size 12. But it just says Europe. In Europe, I wear a size 47. Is the UK not part of Europe? Like, why is that different? And then all the way on the right, I don't know what CM is. It's like UK, Euro, US, and CM. Is that like China or some shit? Because there is a size 31. I just realized there's a fucking QR code on this shoe. Hell no. W Shoe Day. Puma nice on slim, long feet. And that my feet. That long. Okay. Yeah, man. The, look, it's already, the toe already bent up. It still got pretty good tread on the bottom. It's a little dirty. Because I wear them to work. I mean, I don't wear them at work. Like, I just wear them to work. And then when I get to work, I have another pair of shoes that I switch into. You know what I mean? So yeah, but I gotta get some new shoes. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't know if y'all know this. Atheist, like every year, some of us atheists get together. I'm saying it like I've been to all of them. I only been last year. This is the first time I heard about it was last year. Where we have a protest, where we protest the opening of the Ark Encounter experience in Williamstown, Kentucky. And since that's just the next state down from Ohio, right? Or is it Tennessee first? No, it's Kentucky. Yeah. So yeah. So since that's just right there, I went last year, and that's when I got to meet, a bunch of cool people. Like I met Captive Desk. I'm just saying their channels. I met Captive Desk. Fuck it. I think he was the first person I met, but the first person I saw and recognized was Godless Granny. So I met her. You know what I mean? And then I met Chris from the Daily Atheist, formerly the Daily Atheist Morning Show, but now it's just the Daily Atheist Show. I think it might still be the Daily Atheist Morning Show, but anywho, so I met him. You know what I mean? At the hotel that I think Captive Desk, Dave from Captive Desk, and Godless Granny were also staying at. And then when I got to where we were actually going to be doing the protest, the very next person I met was Seth from Ambushed Apostate. And then I met Austin Sims. And then, and then I met Kelly. Kelly Laughlin, Dr. Kelly Laughlin. I met him. Then I met Mandisa Thomas from Black. I think it's the Black Non-Believers. But yeah, I met her, and then I met Jess, I believe, from How to Rule an Asteroid. Is that her name? Jess? Am I saying it right? Is it Stephanie? I can't fucking remember, dude. How to Rule an Asteroid. Met her. Met Godless Engineer. Met the Skeptic. Met Secular Rarity. Um, yeah, good times. And others. I'm just refusing to say the others I met. Besides, the Kentucky atheist, obviously Joe. You know, he was the one hosting the damn thing. Um, so I met the Kentucky atheist, and also Ember, better than Ember. I met her there. We got to watch her give a speech, so that was awesome. And then I ended up giving a speech. I didn't because Durante Lamar was supposed to be there, but he just didn't show up for whatever reason. So they just asked if me last second if I wanted to give a speech or if I would give one, and I'm like, yeah, fuck it, you know. I'm like, I don't really have anything prepared, but I'll give it my best. So, and that was the video that I ended up posting on my channel. It's still there. I think it's the one that says "fuck Christianity." It may not. It be, but I know it's definitely the one that says like Dade Murphy gives a speech or some shit. But so that was the speech I ended up giving. It was like impromptu, last minute, and I'm just like, oh fuck, yeah, all right. So I ended up doing it. But anyway, so we're doing it again this year, same place. Uh, stupid. July, I think it is. Yeah, I think it's July, like July 11th or July 12th. But it's on a Sunday, and it's in Williamstown, Kentucky. So if you wanted to come, you know, you can just hit me up in the Discord and we can give you the information and shit. You know what I mean? Because I'm gonna definitely be there again this year. But I'm also going to NanoCon. I already got my ticket. You know what I'm saying? Now I just gotta secure the hotel room. But I already got my ticket for the full package. You know, for NanoCon. So I will be at NanoCon. So hopefully you'll be able to come to NanoCon, whoever's watching. You know, and it'd be cool to meet y'all there. I know this year, like Matt Dillahunty's supposed to be there. Um, Seth from the Apostate, the Thinking Atheist. I think that's what it's called, the Thinking Atheist. So Seth's gonna be there. Fucking what's her name? Mara. Fuck, I can't think of her name right now. It starts with an M. Monty Mater. I think that's her name. Monty. She's gonna be there. A lot of good people are gonna fucking be there, bro. So if you can come to NanoCon, that's also happening this year. I mean, it happens every year, you know what I'm saying? And I'm just excited that this will be my first NanoCon. I'm excited to see who I'll meet. They wanted me to be on a speaking panel, but I don't know, man. I'd be nervous. You know what I'm saying? I'd be feeling nervous speaking to people in public. Like I'm not a public speaker. You know what I'm saying? I'll do it, but I'm not good at it because I don't do it often. And I get nervous speaking in front of people. You know. But I also want to start making, man, only reason why I'll be making longer videos, I'm just on some other shit right now. Only reason why I'll be making longer videos is because I don't have, like, I want an appropriate background. Like, everyone else's videos look so well put together, you know what I mean? And I want to have an interesting background. It's just I don't have really anywhere in my house. I mean, besides, like, my cat's room, you know what I mean? But I don't want to, like, commandeer their room. Um, but nonetheless, I don't really have much space to set up like my own little spot. I thought he was about to throw up. So that's why I haven't done it yet. Because I need the acoustics to be right and everything. I got the lighting. I got a green screen. I have a mic, obviously. But I just need the space. So I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for watching, you guys. Holla back. Wait, I didn't even say excuse me. Excuse me. Donnie B. Donnie B just left me and shit.